Good evening, everybody. How we all doing?
Good evening, sir. We're well. How are you?
Good, good. Oh, I thought I was talking to everybody. I'm talking to you guys.
I think everybody is muted, but they are all aware that you are here. So
All right,
we'll let you take it away.
Cool. Hello, everyone. We're gonna get started. We'll give it a minute for other people to join in. You can see that there's still some people coming in here. You may hear some noise in the background. There's probably 30 people in my house right now. It's a religious holiday, but they all know that this is a priority. So here we are. All right, we'll let everybody. It looks like we're bouncing off, so I'm going to jump in. First of all, anyone that's joining us for the first time, you're welcome to introduce yourself in the chat. You probably saw the notes about Q&A. We will get to that, and we'll do that properly and make sure that your questions are all cleared and answered through the Q&A box. Meanwhile, there's a reason you're here, and we're going to dive into it. You want to understand what is the secret hidden in your genome that can unlock your ability to get the sort of ideal body type, whether that's losing fat, adding muscle, whether it's a health concern, whether it's obesity as a clinical concern, all of the above. What we find over and over again in the work we've done is that there's people that get stuck. And what does that mean? It means I'm doing everything right, supposedly, right? And textbook right. Calories are correct. Exercise is correct, but I'm stuck. Why can't I get unstuck? And this is where mining your genome really supports answering that question. When we go look for one size fits all answers, which is typically the easiest place to start. It's I listened to a podcast, I watched a video, my friend told me what they did, and it really worked for that person. The thinking is typically that should work for me, because we're all human. The answer is yes, we are, but we're not all the same. Our internal wiring, our biological systems and processes are unique. And what we need to reach a goal isn't always the same between us. The innate failure, the one thing that may be the thing that's making you stuck, the thing that people feel, that could be the one challenge by all those things you tried and all the things that people talked about didn't work for you. So why do we know this? We spent 3 years, and some of you, again, have heard this before, but for those of you that are new to this community, we spent 3 years clinically supporting 7,000 people. And in the genomics world, that's not a small number. The next biggest number that we've seen anywhere close to that is a study out of Norway, where they were working on weight and cardiovascular health, and they looked at 150 people, and they did that over a couple of years to track genome in hand. I have your DNA, I know who you are, here's all your habits, environment, nutrition, etc. And let's understand what that one thing was that prevented you from reaching your goal. So we've done this with 7,000 people over 3 years, and we've been able to document when it comes to their brain, their heart, their hormones, all of the things that make them once again stuck. And then what's that one dial that needs to be turned that nobody knew, that one little nuance that was unique to me that nobody could figure out, because it wasn't a one size fits all answer. It wasn't a go watch this podcast and hopefully it works for you answer. It was like, what do I need? So we're going to dive into some of those whys, and you're going to start to see how crystal clear things could be, as opposed to this muddy, I'm stuck trying this one size fits all and it's not working. So we think about the body in systems and pathways as opposed to symptoms. So the symptom is I'm stuck in my weight loss journey. I'm stuck in my obesity journey. I'm stuck in my disease journey. And the things that I've been told to do don't work. The system-based answer is, let's put the symptoms away for a while. Let's just understand all the jobs that your body's trying to do. Your body's trying to make hormones. Your body's trying to clear toxins. Your body's making new cells. Your body's eliminating old cells. How efficiently do you do each one of those jobs? How do you know that? The way you know that is there's genes that instruct every single one of those jobs. So if you were able to read this human instruction manual, which is what we did with those 7,000 people, dive deep into your 50 trillion cells and understand, here's the code that I have. Here's the instruction that my cells are receiving. Then you know exactly which line of code was written a little bit wrong, And then that's the job that my body doesn't do well. And from there, I have to then take that job, and we're going to get into what all those various jobs are, and interpret it for the context of the problem I'm trying to solve, which is weight, burning fat, adding muscle. How do I take this failed biological process and understand why that, within many habits and steps in between, equal the problem that I'm stuck with? And this is why calories and exercise aren't working. So whenever we work on these problems, we usually start at the brain, and there's many systems in the brain. There's a gene called MC4R, which allows you to experience satiety of the palate. When you're out there eating your meals and your snacks and your whatever, some of us can get satisfied here and some of us can't. This is actually an ancestral trait that allowed people to succeed in a context where there wasn't enough food. We're now, again, the context is key, and you're going to hear this word come up a lot today, context. Today's context is you walk into your home with a fridge and a pantry full of food, but your body is wired for a very different reality where there was a struggle to get calories. And so some people are wired with this beneficial superpower of, my mouth doesn't get satisfied, the MC4R gene, which means that even though I ate my meal and I'm full, I still go to the pantry and I need my Doritos and I need my cookies. I need multiple flavors and textures to reach that satiety. Why? Because this drove my ancestors to seek out variety and get the nutrition variability that they needed to succeed, because it was hard to get. So that lack of satiety actually was a superpower in a previous context, and today it's a major burden. The same thing is true of the gut. There's a gene called FTO that signals between your gut and your brain your ability to experience satiety of the gut. Literally, how quickly do I feel full? And there's some people that have their meal and they're done. They're good. There's some people that have their meal and then they walk over to the stove and they're still scooping from the bottom of the pot, and they still need to take second helpings and they need to take thirds. And when they go to a buffet, it just doesn't end because that signal is just a little slower. And that's the job. That's the biological failure. This signal for me doesn't work. So everything else that I could do, if I don't deal with this, I'm not going to actually understand what I'm consuming. I'm not going to be able to focus on the one thing that's the trigger that led to my weight gain journey, because I'm just consuming far too many calories because I can't understand when I'm full. That one simple nuance could be the one thing. So beyond that, there's neurochemicals of the brain that drive your behavior. They drive how you feel burnt out, procrastinated, your anxiety response, if you feel depressed, or the opposite, your joy, your pleasure, your happiness, your emotional intelligence, how you connect with people. We all do these things very differently, and we all respond to incoming stimulus differently based on the neurochemicals of our brain and how we cope with whatever is going on, and the genes that instruct those neurochemicals. So some of us, and this is unique to call it, how do I deal with calories? This is a unique problem to that. Some of us have a very high ability to bind dopamine. So dopamine is that chemical that allows you to feel pleasure, the pleasure that you get when you eat food. And that high expression means it's very easy to experience pleasure, right? So you notice it and it's there and it becomes a priority. Once you do that, you have to eventually get back to normal. So there's another gene called cant that produces a protein called cant that clears the dopamine out. You eventually need to get back to normal, to your status quo. And so there's this protein that comes along, gets rid of it. Some of us do that really slowly, right? So now imagine the person who experiences dopamine at a high level, like, wow, this is amazing, right? And their clearance is really slow. I can't stop. I'm stuck. I'm not getting out of the pleasure response. I'm stuck in it. This person ends up binging. This is the person that opens the ice cream container saying, I'm going to have one scoop, but it's very difficult to not finish the bucket because they get stuck in that pleasure response. And it's such a powerful feeling, such a powerful driver of your behavior. The opposite is also true, by the way. Look at me. I have the absolute minimum dopamine binding capacity, which means it's very difficult for me to experience pleasure and reward. I also have an ultra fast clearance, which means it doesn't last long enough. So I'm not likely to binge. I'm not likely to get stuck. What I am likely to do is become addicted. Those are two very different things. Binging is, I don't need it, but when I do it, wow, I'm gone. Give me the entire thing. Addiction is, I need it every day on time or I get very frustrated. Which means when I do find that thing I like, I'm going to want more and more and more and more. And talk to me in 2 weeks and look at how much I'm consuming. It's going to be very different than day one. So two very different problems to solve. Now, if you're coming at this from the behavioral perspective, not understanding even just as one neurochemical can be so variable in its outcome and how it changes your behavior, you're probably solving the wrong problem. You're not solving your problem. You're solving somebody else's problem that you heard, again, read in some book or some podcast that maybe did work for them, but isn't the problem you need to solve. So that's one neurochemical. Let's park that. And this is a big component of healing when it comes to inability to stop the calories, right? And sometimes it's inadvertent. You don't even know that this is what you're doing until you become cognizant of like, oh, wow, now I see it. Now I see it in my behavior. So serotonin. Serotonin is a neurochemical that allows your brain to prioritize stimulus, which then leads to either irritability, anxiousness, distractibility. If your brain can't prioritize whatever incoming stimulus there is, it can affect your mood, it can cause anxiety, it can cause you to be frustrated easily because you're noticing just far too many things and you're reading into something a little too much, right? Your brain knows that stress is not a good place to be. Your brain knows that stress equals cortisol, and cortisol equals aging and inflammation, and is a benchmark, a foundation of disease. And so your brain knows that if I'm constantly stressed, because again, context, we said that word context, the dysregulated serotonin response was a superpower in the past when there wasn't constant stimulus, phone, email, letter in the mail, all these things coming in that you need to deal with all at the same time. 3 children, parents, everybody needs help. Versus I live on a farm and once in a while something gets triggered. I'm actually a winner because I notice it first, right? I see things at a little bit higher level of detail. So we are wired for our ancestors' habits genetically, now trying to survive in today's context. And that's why there's so many more problems than ever before. So this particular problem of I see things at a higher level of detail, I'm irritated, bothered, frustrated, causes me constant frustration, irritability, distractibility. Some people might even say I have ADHD when I don't. And guess what? My brain knows that's a problem. So it's going to create hunger as a way to cope, a coping mechanism, and bring that cortisol back down and make you happy. So your body doesn't want to be in that inflamed state. There's a lot of protective mechanisms in the body that are brilliant in nature that are meant to maintain longevity. And all of a sudden, when you, again, put that in today's context, there's overload. There's overload, which leads to like, oh, this is too much. Go eat some cheesecake because I know that will make you happy. This is your brain talking to your body. And all of a sudden, there's extra calories and extra calories and extra calories. We see this a lot with professionals, that the reason why they've succeeded in their profession is because of this serotonin dysregulation, which causes them to catch all these nuances and perceive the world at a greater level of detail, have a bit of a drive around them, right? But when it comes to their behavior, that same thing where they've taken on an additional load causes them to be constantly stressed. So we can keep talking about neurochemicals, but these are just a few examples of the many where we may be able to unpack the very specific thing that is driving your behavior that can be cured with, hey, go eat this, because you think you're doing it, but you're not, right? So now another big area where people get stuck is their hormones. So if I have your hormone map and I've never met you, just give me your hormone map and your age, and I can describe your body. I can tell you what you look like. Why? Because your hormones dictate body type. They dictate to your body how to do all these various jobs of building hips, of storing fat, of deploying muscle. Do I have big, chunky, hefty, strong muscle? Or do I have thin, striated, ripped fibers that I can see like an NBA basketball player? Who am I? Your hormones dictate all of that. So often, especially when it comes to women, we find that the thing that they got stuck with is not a diet or exercise thing, it's a hormone thing. And particularly as women go through various phases, you go from adolescence to, your fertility age to menopause age, there's also a shift in what the hormones are then driving. And the answer that used to be true when you were 25 is no longer relevant. You need to have a different answer. And this is where we can keep dipping into our DNA to keep asking new questions, because your DNA doesn't change. It's the cards you've been dealt. That's who you are. It's just new problems you need to solve by dipping back into that same instruction manual. So some women and men, by the way, are more estrogen dominant. I can tell you that being in Toronto, we work with a lot of NHL hockey players in their training. And I did a lot of this in our research phase, me and some of our clinicians, and we learned from it. This is part of those 7,000 people I was talking about. So in this, we saw that there were some men that, irrespective of their training, these NHL hockey players did not have the same recovery or the same muscle as their peers. In fact, some of them started complaining that, I took the supplements and I took the testosterone hormones that my coach told me to take, and now I have man boobs. I have gynecomastia. What's happening? This is an actual problem that we had to fix. Well, there's a gene called CYP19A1 that takes all your testosterone and determines how quickly you convert it into estrogen. The cascade looks like this: progesterone becomes testosterone, becomes estrogen. This is what your body does, whether you're a man or a woman. Women just do it monthly, men do it every day. The genes that determine all that, we can see how efficient they are, how quickly you do each one of these jobs. So how heavy is each pool being filled? And some people, and women more so than men, have a very fast version of that CYP19A1 gene. Or maybe in the very beginning, the conversion of cholesterol into progesterone, maybe you do that a little too much. So the initial fuel that fuels the estrogen is too much, right? So we have to know where to solve the problem. So by looking at your hormone cascade, we can start to see you make too much progesterone or you make too much estrogen, you are now estrogen dominant, which means your body is being told through hormonal instruction to store fat. This is highly beneficial in an old context where it's very hard to maintain a family and give birth without today's modern conveniences. So the women that succeeded there were those that were estrogen dominant, that did store the fat, that did survive the famine, that did store fat during the battle when they were moving around and there wasn't enough food. So this was actually, again, a beneficial trait, but in today's context can be a burden. So this is a superpower that's in our genetic code that becomes a kryptonite when there is no battle and there is no famine. And, there aren't 15 kids where you're trying to survive and keep some of them alive, hopefully until their adulthood. 15 kids today means 15 adults, right? We have a very different reality. So in this context, if you're not solving the hormone problem, you're not going to equal the goal. You're not going to get to the goal you're striving for, because it's a single driver that it doesn't matter. In fact, the opposite may be true. You might say, I'm going to start fasting. I've heard that intermittent fasting is great. It is. But for the woman who's highly estrogen dominant, it might signal to your brain, famine, time to store fat. The opposite of what you think you're doing, right? So this is where it's very important to understand that hormone cascade, what your body is doing, and then knowing precisely where to intervene. And again, this concept of estrogen toxicity can be broken down into more nuanced buckets. So it's not just about take this pill for estrogen. No, it's very specifically, what supplement do I need to take? What foods do I need to eat? How does my body train? During the month, you have the follicular phase, you have the luteal phase. There's different phases in the menstrual cycle. And so all of a sudden, if you understand your hormone map, you know which week to do heavy weightlifting. You know which week you're supposed to be doing yoga and stretching and no heavy weightlifting because you're going to get an injury. You know where you're going to actually have peak testosterone in that cycle. If we have your DNA and we have that map, you're going to know which days you have peak testosterone, and that's where you really push hard at the gym and burn through that fat. And the other days you don't. There's some women that in the luteal phase right before the menstrual cycle shouldn't work out at all, and they shouldn't fast at all either. It's going to cause the adverse outcome, the opposite effect of what you're striving for, and all that work is for waste. So now all of a sudden, if you understand this hormone map, you can be very precise about, first of all, what your problem is, why are you again stuck, and more importantly, where specifically to intervene. Environment, nutrition, lifestyle, what are the right choices? And before we move on, the opposite is also true, by the way. There's some women that are more testosterone dominant. There's some men that are more androgen dominant. There's some men out there saying that it doesn't matter how much I work out, I can't get big. I want pecs, I want biceps, I want to walk down the beach and show off my body, but I can't. whatever I do, yeah, I get strong. Yeah, I'm healthy, but I'm wiry. I'm thin. I can't get that mass that I want. That's androgen dominance. And this is a misnomer in the hormone world that we see a big ripped male and we think, wow, testosterone. That's not true. That's estrogen. Testosterone, yes, gives you lean muscle fiber. Yes, gives you strength and vitality, but it does not give you mass. It does not give you the ability to deadlift 400 pounds. That is estrogen. And sometimes the opposite problem needs to be solved, where some women also are highly androgen dominant. And picture the easiest way for me to explain this. Let's lean on pop culture for a second. Here's Kim Kardashian. Here's Kendall Jenner, right? They're sisters, but they have a different father. And so they have a different genetic code when it comes to their hormones. Kim, somewhat voluptuous. Kendall Jenner is a runway model, right? Very thin. The female features aren't there. The hips, the breasts, it's not there. Hormones are driving these two. Now, again, we've known that both of them have adapted and changed themselves. There's a little bit of plastic there, but the foundation, we know what it looked like, right? So these are two very different problems that need to be solved that are not solved with the same tools. It's a very, how can you take a one size fit all answer and apply it to either one of these extremes? They're very different. So all of a sudden, if you know who you are foundationally, hormonally, you know exactly what to do to reach your goal. So let's move on from there. A big one where we find a lot of people get stuck is their detoxification pathways. And this seems sort of unrelated. Like, what does detox have to do? I understand why that might cause inflammation or disease. Well, your body doesn't want to have inflammation and disease. And like we said earlier about your diet and cortisol and stress, your body is quite intelligent when it comes to protecting you. It's resilient. It's meant to seek longevity and health. It's not meant to seek disease. It's not just a sitting duck waiting to get sick. The body keeps fighting back. And another thing that it fights back in is in the environmental toxins that you're currently coping with. So when you look at the way that our body processes toxins, and you do this for yourself, you may have a unique way of doing that, meaning inhalation-based toxins. Inhalation, you're breathing things in, pesticides, chemicals. Right now, I'm in Canada, apparently breathing in a lot of smoke from forest fires. We've been hearing this on the news. So all of these things that are threats we breathe in, the genetics of my ability to have a first line of defense, glutathione, some of you have heard of glutathione, and prevent those toxins from entering my bloodstream, there's a high level of variability there. Some of us do that way up here. Some of us do it minus 40%, and some of us do it minus 70%. Those are the actual numbers, depending on what version of the gene you have. So if you are in that minus 70% bucket, which a lot of us are, you're letting the toxins in. GSTT1, another gene, then comes along and says, wow, I think there's toxins in the blood. First line of defense didn't work. Now I'm going to come along, the second gene, and find those toxins, send them to the liver to metabolize. We all know you have your sip of wine or your glass or your bottle, depending what you're doing, if you're a binger, for example, and you get intoxicated, but somehow your liver helps you get rid of those toxins, right? This is how. Your body has tools to bind and clear and find toxins and eliminate them from your body so that that inflammatory outcome is not permanent. It's temporary, right? It's a protective measure. Now, how is this related to weight loss? Well, if you have free-flowing, free radical and toxic activity in your blood, and again, in today's context where the inputs are so extreme, the chemicals, the pollution, it's so much more than what our bodies are wired for. Your body's saying, wow, inflammatory threat, and we are overloaded. I am going to store this in fat. I am going to make sure that my organs don't get damaged. I'm going to make sure that my vasculature, my veins don't get inflamed. So I'm going to take all of this nonsense that I don't have the genetic ability to clear, and I'm going to store it in fat, which means your body needs more fat. And now some people that go into a weight loss journey that have either estrogen dominance or toxicity, first of all, are stuck even beginning the journey because you're solving the wrong problem. These are actually the two problems. But once you start to get into the journey and you're not planning that weight loss as per the biological function of your body, well, go burn some fat that was storing toxins and you're releasing toxins back into your bloodstream, which means inflammation, which means a whole cascade of protective measure to then once again store fat. And this is why people hit plateaus. Oh, I felt a lot better and it got worse. And now it's actually worse than when I started, right? Same thing with estrogens. What does your body do with excess estrogens? They get stored in fat. So you start your weight loss journey. Estrogen is a hormone that triggers fat storage. You just burn some fat that has a whole bunch of estrogen stored in it, which causes you to signal to store more fat. So now the genetics of how we do this is, again, variable. I gave you a high level of what some of the triggers are, right? But how you do this as an individual, first of all, which one of these actually is your problem? We don't know. We have to look into your DNA to find out. And then we can be very precise and action it quite quickly. But also the plan or the program to reach the goal isn't the same. It isn't just go take this pill or go run on this treadmill or go lift these weights. How long do you do that before the estrogen starts seeping back into the bloodstream and causing you to store more fat? If we don't understand your dominance, if we don't understand your detox pathways, we can't be specific about the plan, right? You once again will get struck and frustrated and give up. And that's not where we want people to be. Where we want you to be is we want it to be easy. We want it to be fun. We want it to be rewarding. We want it to be where every time I do something, I feel a sense of reward. I feel progress and I'm not getting stuck and I'm not falling back. And this is what happens with our patients. Our patients constantly and consistently are thanking us and sending us crazy emails saying, finally, 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 I have the answer. Finally, 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 the thing that I just never knew was a problem, I now know, and I can focus on that. Finally, 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 the place where I kept getting stuck, I now know is because I'm releasing estrogens into the bloodstream, or I'm releasing toxins into the bloodstream, or I have a serotonin issue and I'm eating these Doritos that I didn't even think about. And then they know what to focus on. So the actual behavioral change component. So let's park all that for a second. The detox pathways are also implicit in your gut. There's a gene called GSTM1, which is responsible to protect the gut from incoming toxins that you eat. And it's not just food coloring and the basic things that we're aware of, it's also the packaging. It's also the machines that the food was processed on, the heavy metals, for example, that get sprayed with chemicals to clean them, that then enter your gut lining. And guess what? The gene GSTM1, some of you may have heard of variants called SNPs, meaning here's a gene, it's thousands of letters long, and somewhere on that gene, there's a spelling mistake. And now that gene doesn't do its job properly. That's what we know of genetics. There's also something called a copy number variation. What does that mean? I don't even have the gene. Forget about what version or what variant or what edit, variant or mutation. I didn't get the gene. And this is possible for both the GSTM1 gene. It's not possible for all genes, by the way. It's only possible for very specific genes. Just a phenomenon that happens to happen within those genes. This is possible for GSTM1, the gene that is solely responsible for your gut detox. It is also possible for GSTT1, the gene that is responsible for once the toxins are in the bloodstream and getting them out, right? So we can be very clear on why some people just have a horrible time, and when it comes to go eat this diet and that diet doesn't make you feel good, well, maybe it's because you don't have the right gut detox capacity. So the solution, along with that diet, it's not complete without the right supplements and supporting sort of personalized support that you would need to make that diet work. So now that we're talking about diet, let's dive into that. This is often where people start, and I very purposely didn't start there because I want you to hear and see that there's so many other places to go. When people are stuck, it's like, how do I just tweak the diet more? Right? It's like, I think Henry Ford said that if I ask the people what they want, they'll just ask for a faster horse, right? They're not looking outside of the blinders. And this is normal human nature. If you don't know, you don't know. There's a lot more to know. And that's what I wanted you to hear. But yes, diet is a concern. And some of us say, well, I'm going to try the keto diet because my friend did it and she lost 20 pounds, right? Well, did you know that there's a single gene, ApoA2, responsible for your ability to metabolize fats? And everybody that goes onto the keto diet feels great. Everybody, because you start releasing ketones, you're burning fat as fuel. There's no starch in your body, so the inflammation goes down. Your insulin response gets a little balanced. But if you are not genetically designed to be a fat metabolizer, which is very easy to determine, by the way, genetically, then 5, 6, 7, 8 weeks, you're going to start to struggle. And what happens is nobody ever blames the keto diet because you felt so good in the first couple of weeks. It's like, it couldn't be this. What else am I doing wrong? And you don't solve the right problem. And all of a sudden you start to store fat and your cholesterol numbers go up and you get sluggish and you get brain fog simply because the job, right, that biochemistry, the biological function of using fat as fuel, your body doesn't do well. And it's so easy to determine. You don't need to guess. The same is true of starches, right? How many of us are like low carb, no carb, zero carb? Well, I was just at a conference and I was speaking with Dr. Mercola backstage. Some of you know Dr. Mercola, brilliant man. And his current research is showing how much people actually need carbs in their diet, and the zero carb culture is causing disease. So we find that some people actually are really efficient starch metabolizers and they need starch in their diet, and some people aren't. Some people, like myself, have the worst possible starch metabolic pathway. And so if I go rely on pasta, like I'm told, hey, tomorrow you're doing a big training day, you better eat a bowl of pasta today, get your carbs in. Well, I'm not going to function the rest of that night because I don't have the right genes to break down, metabolize those starches, and once again, use them as fuel. That's the thing that can then trigger my insulin response, cause type 2 diabetes, cause inflammation, cause the conversion of, food into fat, right? This is ultimately what happens when your body is dysbiotic in terms of what's coming in is not aligned to your genetic capacity. It's going to end up becoming fat, whether it is protein, carb, whatever it is, right? Even fat ultimately becomes glucose, right? Which then goes to your liver and turns into more fat, right? So we can be very precise there. Now, we mentioned insulin response. The TCF7L2 gene determines how efficient your insulin is managed in accordance to your diet. How do you respond? How efficiently do you respond? And this is a constant place where people get stuck, where the thing they're doing makes them feel bad, where they get the brain fog, where they get slow and lethargic, where they can't stick to the meal plan because it's not designed for their genetic wiring. And it's very easy to determine. Once again, you dive into your genome and it's right there. The results are there, and it's very easy to see that I don't do this job well. So based on that, I have to alter this plan that I was given by whomever or wherever I listened to consider this one major red flag. If I don't consider this in all of what I'm planning for myself, I'm not going to have a good result because I'm not like that person. I'm wired differently. This was the thing that was preventing me from achieving success. So I have to consider this in whatever I plan, right? So now diet nutrition, the one big red flag that we keep seeing over and over again when it comes to diet nutrition, and I left this for last because it's kind of call it a trend, right? That there's a belief that vegan diets are healthy. And guess what? There's some people that when we look at their genomic profile, we tell them, you might actually do well as a vegan, right? You might. But for the most part, and I can't tell you how many times we've worked with a sick person, and when we unpacked and unraveled it, we found that the day they got sick was the day they became vegan. Why? Because the enzyme activity required to break down plants, lentils, legumes, chickpeas, beans are driven by your methylation cascade. Methylation, some of you have heard about before, this key anti-inflammatory system that's using your B complexes to drive various biological functions, including producing the enzymes that your gut needs to break down kale, beans, chickpeas. And as a vegan, where do you get your protein from? You get it from the beans, lentils, chickpeas, legumes. That's where it all comes from. I can't, like, how many people here you can raise your digital hand in terms of, hey, I tried a vegan protein shake and I got bloated. It seemed clean. Why? This is me, by the way. This is true for me. If I go have a vegan protein shake, I can't have my next meal. I'm bloated for the rest of the day. If I have a bowl of hummus for lunch, I can't eat dinner. I can't, truly. Why? Because I don't make the enzymes required to break down that food. So I should not be relying on that as my primary fuel. Now, again, all of these diets, whether it's keto, vegan, whatever, they can be used as therapeutic tools, irrespective of your genetics. Even if you're a bad fat metabolizer, go ahead and use a carnivore diet for 3, 4, 5 weeks to bring inflammation down, to rid yourself of any potential toxins or nonsense food that may be in your plate, and instead just have beef, liver, and eggs, right? And that is a great anti-inflammatory healing diet. But if you don't have the genetic wiring to sustain that, it will make you sick. Go ahead and be a vegan for the next 3 weeks and just cleanse yourself and get rid of all the nonsense and eat some beautiful plants, right? And do that for a while. But if you do it longitudinally, you're getting sick. You will get sick. Your hormones will be disrupted. Your gut will be disrupted. You'll have brain fog. Your gut will be in a dysbiotic state and may eventually lead to leaky gut, Crohn's, colitis, etc. So it's very important to know what your body is wired for. And if you align to those habits, you're going to thrive. You're going to feel incredible. Imagine reading this human instruction manual and saying, here's exactly the jobs your body does well, and here's exactly the jobs your body doesn't do well. And now I'm going to focus on these jobs that I do well and incorporate those into my habits. And for the jobs that my body doesn't do well, I'm going to eliminate all of that nonsense. And I'm not only going to do that, I'm going to add supplementation or exercise or other habits that support this failed biological function to bring it up to where I'm doing well on the other stuff. And all of a sudden, every choice you make is the right choice. Imagine the outcome of every choice you make: food, diet, exercise, supplementation, relationships, work, everything that you have to do that could potentially lead you towards health or lead you away from health. Because that's truly what's happening. Every day you decide to breathe and eat and talk to anyone, all of those activities either lead you towards health or lead you away from health, because there's biochemistry that kicks in that changes your body. If you always make the right choice, what would be the outcome? It would be adding years to your life. It would be feeling way better today. It would be no chronic disease, because guess what? You weren't born with chronic disease, you cause it. You have to do things wrong in order to reach that level of inflammation or immunosuppression to allow a disease to actually manifest and thrive. And if you do everything right, you're going to have the cells of your 19-year-old self that were not in a chronic disease state. Why doesn't diabetes happen at 15 for the most part? You know, there's some odd cases here and there. Why doesn't breast cancer happen at 15? Why doesn't cardiovascular? Why aren't 15-year-olds on Lipitor? Now, by the way, we're seeing for the first time ever, American children are presenting adult conditions because of their food, because of their environment, because of chemicals, because of EMF, cell phones, dysregulating cellular function. So that just answers the question right there. You weren't born with it, but if you have the wrong habits, even a 15-year-old can get a disease now because the habits are accelerating it so much faster, right? But ultimately, you don't need to have them. And that's the answer to what if you always made the right choice, right? So now, the other area we have to focus on, and we're going to get into Q&A. We're going to get some questions because I understand that this is new to some of you. And we'll make sure that if there's anything specific you need to get into, I know some of you wanted to work with us on our weight loss health coaching program, and that's why you're here today. And so the intention for you here is to just learn some of the red flags, some of the nuances, some of places where people get stuck. And by the way, there's so much more. There's so much more. Our weight loss report is this thick. It's not a product that goes out to the public. It's a product that our clinicians use when they're building programs for people. So there's this much, content that needs to be dove through in order to build your plan. So some of you wanted to understand how you actually work with us on a weight loss program. I'll talk about that in a minute, but really the intention was to make sure you understand all the potential places you can get stuck. So sleep is another big one. Sleep is when you recover, and there's kind of two major halves to sleep. There's the beginning, first half, which is me recovering from everything I did the day before, right? My body's lymphatic drainage, the lymph system, glymphatic drainage of the brain, getting rid of brain toxins. Glutathione is being sort of sent out through the bloodstream to find other free-flowing toxins. Heavy metal toxicity is dealt with. All of that nonsense, even muscle repair and your training that you did, making up for the work you did, all that happens in the first half. The second half is more preparing for the next day. So it's making your hormones, making your neurochemicals, getting the detox systems up and ready to deal with whatever's coming, right? So now, broken sleep isn't one thing. What we've understood genetically is that there's three very different buckets of I don't sleep. One is I can't fall asleep. I can't fall asleep means that it's a different time every night. I lie on my pillow and I struggle. the TV affects me, stress affects me, throw something wrong into the mix and it just screws up my ability to fall asleep, versus put me on a pillow and I'm gone, right? So that's one problem. Second problem is I don't really have a problem falling asleep. I go to bed, I'm out within my 15-minute period. That latency, as we call it, the right time is actually 15 minutes, by the way. It should take you 15 minutes to fall asleep. If it takes you longer, you're going to bed too early. If it takes you less, you're going to bed too late. 15 minutes is the right time. That's sleep latency, as it's called. So some people do that well. And then in the middle of the night, 3 a.m.-ish, 2 a.m.-ish, they kind of wake up and they have struggle getting back into that same quality of sleep. So let's use this as an example of how genetics can inform what the problem is. And if you're not sleeping properly, you're not losing weight, right? That initial effort of, it's my first week at the gym and my first week of cutting calories. Yeah, everybody is going to lose weight in that week, irrespective of your genetics. Then you're going to get stuck, right? It's the stuck part that everyone needs help with. And some of us get stuck a lot sooner than others. So in that second problem of I fall asleep, but I can't stay asleep, your serotonin response is what's meant to get you out of bed. And the trigger is meant to be sunlight coming in through your window or your cave, because that's an ancestral trait that we still have, triggering the binding of serotonin. Your brain now knows, let's bind and collect serotonin, which then drives a cortisol response, and all systems start firing, and you're truly awake. Again, put that in today's context, where all of the stimulus of it's too hot because I have a heater, it's too my blanket is too light, too heavy, there's two people in the bed and somebody's touching me, or there's noise outside, or there's light leakage, or whatever, any incoming stimulus. I said much earlier, when your serotonin response is dysregulated, your brain has a challenge prioritizing stimulus, so it doesn't know what to give attention to. And so when that stimulus is overburdensome and your serotonin is dysregulated in that second half of sleep, where your brain is waiting for a stimulus, sunlight, to bind serotonin, it doesn't know which one to reply to. Is this sunlight, or is this just a dog barking, or is this I'm just too hot? And you're in and out, in and out, in and out, constantly awake, asleep, awake, asleep. So it's a very different problem to solve than I can't fall asleep. And most sleep solutions are exactly that. Take some magnesium, take some melatonin, and hopefully you'll fall asleep. The majority of us, that's not the problem we need to solve. And if you don't fix this problem, you will be eternally stuck. Because this is the time when you make your hormones. This is the time when you make your neurochemicals to give you the mood and the drive to even do the things that you need to do to lose your weight, and to be driven to have the right meal plan, and to be driven to actually drive to the gym. If you're not doing this properly, this sleep, which is also recovery, by the way, if you're going to go train and not recover, you didn't really derive a benefit from all that work you did. So you need to sleep, right? So there's so many more systems we can dive into. And even this one subject of sleep, I could spend 2 hours just talking about this. In our clinical interactions, this may be the thing that we find, and this may be the thing that we do spend 2 hours with you on. Like, we really, really, really need to focus on your sleep, because the genome is pointing to that being the massive red flag because of various genes. So the way we execute programs, to answer the question of people that are asking how they get into weight loss programs, is exactly that. There's a genetic test and a genetic report, which some of you are familiar with, and it will inform what version of genes you have, what the cascades look like, what the systems look like. So then we know what to prioritize. And that's really what the genome is for. It will tell us, focus on this, because this is the job that my body doesn't do well. And if I focus on this central system failure, there's so many symptoms that come out of it that I start to feel better, right? So that's one. Now, after I've done that, how do I dive deep into this and reinterpret for my problem, my context, which is weight? Because there's no weight loss gene and there's no weight gain gene. As you've heard up until now, there's all these system failures that point to various reasons, and there's so many more that we didn't even talk about, that can point to these system failures that equal I'm struggling and I'm stuck because I'm trying to solve a problem that is beyond calories and treadmill. There's something else. I don't know what it is. And if I actually solve that problem, it becomes so easy to reach my goal, because I'm doing exactly what my body needs. I'm getting unstuck from the exact point where I am stuck, right? So in this program, again, testing up front, so we understand the genome, what to focus on and prioritize. But instead of handing that over to you to sort of self-serve, one of our functional genomics certified coaches will dive into that and build the plan. They will spend time with you, 1 month, in fact, they'll spend with you diving into the data to figure out all of what's sticking out in terms of red flags, and then audit your environment, nutrition, lifestyle. What are all your habits? What are all the loads that you're putting on top of your genetic profile that are equaling the problem? The genetic profile is telling us what jobs you don't do well, but we don't know what you're doing poorly in your habits. So this then leads you to a plan, and a personalized plan, which is really the only way to get unstuck. It's, I need to solve my problem, not a problem, right? I need to adjust my habits for my body, not learn habits for a body. It's me. I'm different. I'm unique. And the one thing that's making me stuck may be different than the other 100 people that this coach just dealt with, and that none of those things are going to work, right? There's one unique nuance. Could be my detox, could be my hormones, and there's so many other things we could talk about. So this is the intention of the program, and we'll drop a link in here for anyone that wants to explore that. It's designed exactly for this purpose. Again, a lot of people were asking, so I had to cover this for you guys to understand how that is. We'll put the link into the chat box. You can click there, learn there. If you want to speak to someone, let us know. But that was really the answer to your question of how do I work with somebody on this and build a plan that's personalized for me? How do I not have to take all this genetic data and reinterpret it for my problem? Can somebody do this for me? Can somebody give me that perfect plan, that flawless plan? Can someone do that? Yes, we can. This is what we do. We have someone on our team, Justin. I don't even know if he's on today, but we did a partnership with an organization here in Canada where there was about, I think, 50 or 60 of these weight loss programs in one group, and Justin just finished doing them all. So he's also learned a ton and added that to sort of our data and insights. So we'll drop this link in here for you guys to be able to learn more about the plan. We'll also drop a link in here for you guys to be able to just get the test if you want. We want to honor you being here tonight. So we'll make sure that there's a code in there for you to get a discount on the test. Anybody that wants that, just so you know. But before going there, again, the links will be here. You can click on them. The test itself, the program, if you want the guidance, if you want the hand holding, if you want someone to build this for you and turnkey plan this out for you and mine into every potential stone that needs to be unturned in your genome and say, here it is, here's the thing that we didn't know, we'll do that for you. We'll drop the links in there for you. So before that, let's get into Q&A. I can see a couple questions. So somebody's asking about Ozempic. So raise again your digital hand if you've heard of Ozempic butt and Ozempic face. These are real things, by the way. What are those? If you once again only go after the symptom, if you once again only go after how do I get rid of this fat, right? And I take Ozempic to do that. Here's this wonder drug to take it to get rid of this fat. You haven't yet understood why you had the fat in the first place, right? You still don't know the answer. So you haven't made yourself healthier. Your metabolic health is probably still shoddy, right? You probably still actually haven't done the job of healing the root cause that drove the weight gain to begin with. So what you're doing is what we call lipstick on a pig. You've masked the pain point. You haven't eliminated it. And this is the challenge with Ozempic. And this is why you're seeing people with what they call Ozempic butt and Ozempic face, which means sagging skin and sagging butt skin. Why? Because you got rid of the fat and muscle tissue. By the way, Ozempic causes you to lose muscle, which is very bad, especially as you age. But you haven't actually got healthier. So the skin isn't reviving and it's not regenerative in nature. It's not going back to its original state. It's showing you how unhealthy you are, that I don't have the cellular ability to actually go back to what I used to be. I'm going to just sit here and sag because you haven't made me healthy. The cells are struggling. The mitochondria are struggling. The mitochondria doesn't have the energy to regenerate and create that tight. It doesn't. Your body doesn't have the ability to, use collagen stores and actually do the job of making your skin healthy, right? And yes, Trisha, doctors are prescribing this. It's a medical answer. It's allopathic healthcare. It's chemical medicine. And some people think of it as an easy answer. Yeah, great. You're gonna, like Khloe Kardashian, go ahead and use a medical tool and melt some fat, but you did not address the cause, and you are still unhealthy, right? You're still unhealthy, which is super important because something else is going to manifest. You get rid of the fat, some other problem is going to manifest. It's not that, it's something else, right? And this is the way the body works. A central hub of I don't detoxify properly could equal, okay, let's go store some fat to put it in. Get rid of the fat. Well, now all of a sudden the toxins are in the blood. I might get breast cancer. I might get Alzheimer's. I might get cardiovascular disease because I now allowed the inflammatory insult to be in the bloodstream as opposed to stored in fat because I use Ozempic to get rid of it. So that's my big answer to you guys. Second question here from Lisa. Monitoring blood sugar as a way of reflecting the genetic process. So monitoring in real time is where am I at today, right? Monitoring your blood is where am I at today? You don't know why yet. So the reverse, what you're saying is true. Once I identify my genetic root cause, here's the job that my body doesn't do well, right? Now, all of a sudden, I start to change my habits and I start to implement something that I didn't even think of before because I didn't realize that was the problem, right? And I start to do something. And now that I do that, how do I know it's getting better? Well, you're going to start to burn fat, first of all. You're going to see your body change. You're going to see your mood change. You're going to see your energy change. You're going to see your sleep quality increase. But you can also empirically measure. You can get a continuous glucose monitor. You can do blood testing, just like we're seeing here in the Q&A box, right? So you can do those things and you can actually empirically measure that this worked at a medical level because you're driving change to the biomarkers by addressing the root cause. The biomarkers are way too late. That's 5, 6, 7, 10, 15 years of you having the wrong habits to cause that level of inflammatory insult to the blood that you got sick, that some level in the blood is off. The root cause is what drove it. And the root cause, by the way, doesn't have one negative outcome. It has many. This is why most people, as they age, have comorbidities. They don't have one condition, they have 2, they have 3, and then they have 4, and then they're in treatment because the same thing is driving all. In fact, let me tell you that the top, 14 of the 15 top medical killers in the United States are all rooted in the exact same one thing: inflammation. Inflammation is the disease. The symptomology of Alzheimer's, cancer, diabetes, cardiovascular disease, depression, etc., are all where is my hardware genetically not wired properly, and that's the thing that will manifest first. But the inflammation had to be there first in order for it to manifest. And we can now understand how your body deals with everything that causes inflammation so that it never happens. And guess what? 14 of the top 15 killers are no longer possible. Life extension, health span, not lifespan, quality of life. And some people may be asking, well, what is the 15th? Well, the 15th is actually the number 3 killer. Out of those 15 is the number 3 killer, and it's medical error. It's your doctor making a mistake and killing you. That's a number 3 medical cause of death in the United States right now, which is also, by the way, driven by inflammation. You wouldn't have gone to the doctor if you weren't sick to begin with. So ultimately, we want at the cellular level to be healthy and strong. So let's get into some more of your questions. We had some great questions there. Any other thoughts you guys have here? Judy asked, I have my DNA results. Tracy was kind enough to answer. This is exactly the intention. There were some people here that said, well, I have my DNA results. How do I convert this into some level of coaching or weight loss program? That's exactly the point. The link is there. If you click on it, that will show you the weight loss program. It allows you to then take all of what's in your test and apply it to the context of how do I get that ideal body type, and not just aesthetically, but also health, right? We're talking about internal longitudinal health by driving metabolic health, right? And this is the outward result of less fat, more muscle is just manifesting the inward truth of good metabolic health. And metabolic health is a driver of inflammation. It is where diabetes and cardiovascular disease and Alzheimer's come from. By the way, Alzheimer's is now called type 3 diabetes. Type 3 diabetes, that's what it's called. Because if you're not metabolically healthy, you're going to get it. But if you are metabolically healthy, you can't get it. By the way, just to be more specific, there are some very rare genetic cases of dementia and Alzheimer's, but that's a tiny, tiny fraction. It's maybe 1 or 2%. The majority, 95% plus, 98%-ish, is caused. It's type 3 diabetes. It's things that you eat and breathe and smell and put on your skin that cause inflammation. And you may just have a bad genetic ability to deal with cholesterol. And so you start to develop plaque in the brain. And we can plan and map all this out and understand this. And then all of a sudden it equals a disease called Alzheimer's or dementia. It does not need to happen. We just had a call yesterday, myself and Neil, our CFO, I'm not sure if he's here with us tonight. I don't think he's here, with a clinician that strictly works with Alzheimer's patients. And we're building them a protocol for their patients around Alzheimer's reversal and prevention. And it all has to do with personalization through the genome. And the byproduct of that is weight loss, because we're going to get them metabolically healthy and they will lose weight. And it's not the struggle of just not eating. No, it's the benefit of doing exactly what your body needs you to do. So as opposed to saying no and the pain of I can't eat, I have to exercise too much, it's like, do exactly what your body needs. You're going to eat anyway. Just eat what your body needs you to eat, and then you'll thrive. So let's drop some more questions. If there's any questions, put them in the Q&A box. So Shelby asked, is this similar or different from biological age assessment? No, so it's different. We do offer a biological age test. But what we're talking about is so biological age is, how is your DNA expressing today? Meaning, how damaged are you? That's really what that's saying. It's saying, how damaged are you, right? What we're saying is, you still don't know why and what to do about it. More importantly, what jobs does my body not do well? Let me then go support those jobs. It's very, very difficult to get sick. Very difficult. It's very easy to extend my lifespan. That's what we do. We don't look at where you're at today. We look at your innate genetic profile, which would tell us why you're there today. Why? What thing in your body isn't working that you need to prioritize and focus on? What is the success rate of weight loss done through your program? I have been able to keep off weight. Yeah. So this is the key difference. Sandhya, this is exactly probably the most important question, which is, most weight loss solutions lead to this temporary benefit, and then you go back to where you started. The majority, if you look up the data, it's astounding. It's north of 70% of people that go through a weight loss program end up back, and sometimes worse than where they started. Why? Because they're solving the wrong problem. They're starving themselves. They didn't actually fix the problem. Or they're overworking themselves through exercise. They're solving the wrong problem. If you actually solve the problem of the root cause and support the innate biological failure, whether it's detox, whether it's hormones, whether it's eating the diet that's aligned to your genome, keto, vegan, etc., it's permanent. The change is permanent, because you're solving the problem at the system level, not the symptom level. You've adopted a habit that is addressing the reason why you got fat, not let me get rid of the fat. This concept, let me burn fat. I'm going to go on the treadmill and burn my fat. No, let's ask why you stored the fat. What caused it to happen, right? That's the question we should be asking. And if you do that, Sandhya, to your point, it's permanent. As long as you maintain the habits, which are easy to do, because we're not saying to add a bunch of new stuff. We're saying what you already do, just do it the way your body needs you to do it. You already eat, just eat the right way. You're already trying to exercise, just do it the right way. You're already taking potentially medications or supplements, just do it the right way for your hormones in your body. And when you do that, it's permanent. So to answer Janet's question, is there a transcript? Yeah, everybody will get a replay. I believe the code is available to July 5th. So the code for the DNA test, so the 15% off is on the DNA test only. We never offer a discount on the program. In fact, we typically have a waiting list. There's very few people in the world. Try Googling this, try looking for a functional genomics practitioner and see how difficult it is to find. We're one of the few companies in the world that actually have a trained team. And so it's very difficult to extend a discount because we have a massive waiting list. So it's more about getting in and having the program built for you. Typically, we're looking for larger corporate type groups, which is what we did with that weight loss program. It was one single big customer that sent us a bunch of people. But we will, for this group, this was the intention behind this education session. And so we're going to extend that to you. So you can click on the link for the program. It is as it is. But if you want the test and you want to sort of self-serve, you can use this promo code that's in here of DNA hacks. And the program is additional. Thanks. Okay. And sorry, Gina, to your point, I believe that if you do the program, there is a test included in it. Let me just make sure. Just want to make sure.
Yes, Kash, if there is a test included with the program, and if somebody
Okay.
has already done the program, because it does come from a sterile and clean room environment, we do encourage them to give it as a gift to one of their loved ones so that they too can get a DNA test report.
Right. So irrespective of your test status, you're getting a test with a program. And if it's additional, since if you've already been tested, it becomes a gift for a family member, which I don't know a better gift you can give somebody than unlocking their human genome and allowing them to make the right choice every time for the rest of their existence. So, any more questions? These are some great questions. Any more thoughts, guys? I'm going to see if there was any questions open in the chat. Trisha said, DNA testing interpretation that you do should be standard care given by GPs. I agree with that. So sad that we can't find it. And this is the challenge. So GPs aren't trained. This is not part of their toolkit, right? And so their toolkit is tell me what's broken, tell me what hurts, and when I get rid of the pain, check mark, right? Never asking what caused the pain to begin with. And that's why Ozempic is a going concern, because the answer is yes, you have less fat now, without ever asking why you stored the fat to begin with. And if you don't address the root cause and only eliminate the symptom, you're just going to get another problem, because the fuel, the fire that was fueling that problem is still there. You didn't put out the fire. You just got rid of the smoke, which is the fat. Some other smoke is going to appear. Breast cancer, dementia, etc. You need to deal with the root, because the same inflammatory insult that is causing the fat retention, whether it's hormones, weight, cortisol, hormones or toxins, or even internal toxins that you make through oxidation. We didn't even talk about that. That's a whole other source of toxins that some of us make. You're not solving the root. You're triggering something else. If you get rid of the fat and your body doesn't have a place to store this toxin, something else is going to manifest. So you need to deal with the root cause. Okay, Debbie's asking, what about if our DNA test was done by different organizations? So this is challenging. You remember, Debbie, how I was talking about the copy number variations, for example, where you may be entirely missing a gene. So most genetic testing companies don't test for that. The sad truth is that because your DNA doesn't change, when you buy a DNA test, that's it. Your results are the same results for life. And so the genetic testing industry doesn't like that because it's not profitable, right? There's no repeat business. And so they all became data selling businesses. And if you're a data selling business, the data you need to collect is around pharmaceutical development, which is different genes and different variations versus understanding systems. So we had to make a conscious choice to not be a data selling business, but instead to be a clinic. So when we became a clinic, we then built a product that was around solving your problem, not around solving the data buyer problem of I need these genes, which are not useful when it comes to the context of weight loss. So the short answer, Debbie, is no, we have not found another DNA test. And trust me, we would love to do that. There's 80 million people that have bought an ancestry test. We would love to be able to tell them, come work with us with your test. We can't. They don't test for what we're testing for, right? Janet is saying that she can't get the 15% off code. Just to be clear, it's on the test only. And maybe somebody can test this out on our end and just ensure that there's no issue there. Please, on our end, let's check the code and let's see if it's working for the test. And if it is, let's maybe drop in a link for the test. It's not going to work on the program. How does this compare to epigenetic testing? So epigenetics, and Judy, sorry, I missed your question. I'll jump back to that. For Shelby, epigenetics is kind of like blood work. Where are you at today? Right? Where are you at today means if your epigenome is overexpressing, then you're doing something wrong. Your body's not in a good state. You're unhealthy, but you still don't know what to do about it. There's no actionable insight. You know that you're in bad shape, but now you go down the same trial and error, one size fits all rabbit hole of why is this going wrong? What is it, my food? Is it my stress? I think I'm doing everything right. What's going wrong? That's the challenge with epigenetics is a great tool for research and tracking. I 100% agree with it for research and tracking, which means that you get your DNA test done, you start a program, you start to do things that are designed for you at a personalized level, you start to lose weight and it's working. Then you do an epigenetic test. You've done one on day one, by the way. Then you do another epigenetic test to see, oh, my epigenome is now doing better. I'm actually truly healthier inside. That's what I believe epigenetics is good for, is for tracking. And sorry, Judy, I missed your question. Is there a way here for some of these thousands of people who have gone through this program? Sorry, I'm just trying to understand the question. Is there a way to hear from some of these thousands of people to have gone through this program? I'm not sure I understand, Judy, what the question is.
I think what she's looking for are testimonials, and they are on the website. So go onto the site and you'll see that there's hundreds of testimonials. People have left messages, images, and they're all on the website.
Yeah, and if you specifically want to understand the weight loss program, Justin Harris, a brilliant practitioner on our side, just like we were just saying, he just went through many dozen of them. He could probably get a few specific to this program if that's what you need to hear, because I understand that completely. Show me the outcome. Did people get better, right? It's very hard to not get better if you're using your genetics, because it's clearly pointing to the root cause problem. But certainly we have tons and tons of tests. Well, they're on our website. If you need more, email us, we'll get them for you. Anne Stevenson is asking, are you seeing with long haul patients as to some of their problems with specific genes related to ACE2? So long haul, we're seeing a lot of stuff. There's a lot that we've been working on, and it's not just ACE2, but yes, ACE2 is implicit. ACE2 drives hypertension. It also is the sort of catalyst to COVID depositing its RNA into your cells. So it's a thing that causes you to actually get sick and the virus proliferate in your body. Same thing with the solution being the vaccine, right? So yeah, for sure, ACE2 highly is one of the key factors in regulating response and long haul, but there's so much more to long haul than just the starting point of ACE2. Just like we said of weight loss, how do you deal with inflammation? What is the quality of your endothelium? Here's your arteries. We can determine with your genetics what the quality of that inner lining is. That it's stainless steel robust, or is it paper thin and highly prone to inflammation, right? So there's so many things. We can, again, have a 2-hour talk just on long haul and all of what we know and learn, and how to personalize solutions so that everybody gets better, as opposed to take the supplement or take this pill, it might work for you. Everybody's problem is different. Some women are making toxic estrogens, and so the total threshold is too much. They have an inflammatory insult from their hormones, and they make it every month in their cycle. And they also now have this hyperinflammatory insult from either the spike protein of the vaccine or the virus. And the compound effect is too much, which equals this total load problem. So everyone's answer is not the same, but we know many, 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 same exact thing as us going through weight loss. It's not one single answer. And if anybody gives you one single answer, you're once again stuck in one size fits all, and it's only going to work for some people. So now to go to Judy's question, been there, done that, have the genetic report to show, no results, love to talk with them, thank you. Yeah, so that's exactly the case. So most genetic companies, again, are not designed for clinical action. They are PhDs and researchers that are trying to understand the gene, not disease, and not the human body. And so this is why we had to do exactly what I said, in the very first few minutes of this call, which is that the reason why we know what we know is because we spent 3 years studying 7,000 people in a clinical setting. We fixed them all. We spoke to many clinics in our area in Toronto and said, send us all the people that you can't fix, because we're trying to learn. And we fixed every single one of them. So 7,000 anecdotal case studies of how we use their genome to get them unstuck. whether it was fibromyalgia, whether it was autism, whether it was a weight issue, whether it was migraines, whether it was Lyme disease that kept them in their bed. We fixed them all. And when I say fix, for example, something like autism is not turn the switch on and it's gone, but it's like, let's take this kid from punching holes in the walls to tying their shoelaces, right? Those types of solutions, we got it better. So, and that's exactly the point, is genetic testing companies never meet a patient and don't know how to apply this stuff. Clinicians don't understand genetics and can't apply it. And so we had to be the people in the middle to do that. And that's why we are the world's first functional genomics company that actually does things clinically. So Gina doesn't understand the $500 of the kit when other companies are selling cheaper, because other companies are doing what's called a SNP test. They're looking for a bunch of spelling mistakes in genes. We test your DNA 4 separate times for 4 different types of variants, and that's the only way to get the answers we need. So go buy a DNA test that will tell you, you have a 60% chance of weight gain. Or go buy a DNA test that will tell you, here's the exact reason you can't burn fat. Here's your action plan for the next 6 months. And if you do this, you're going to start burning through it. That's the difference. If you want a basic SNP test for $100 or $200 or $300, you're going to be told propensity-based information, because they're not functional in nature. They're not looking at the system. They're taking each individual gene and just telling you what version of the gene you have. They haven't interpreted it. They haven't put it into a context that is for your problem, which is weight loss. That requires a lot more testing than just a simple run of SNPs. It requires the copy number variations, like I told you, missing genes. It requires what we call insertions or deletions. So there's chunks of genes missing. It requires an algorithm that lays things out into pathways and systems that mirror human biology, as opposed to individual genes, that is not the way the body works. And that's why there's a difference. DNA is part of the program, no deduction on the weight program. Yeah, so Steve, to answer your question, yes, the DNA test is included in the program if you go straight to that. And yes, we do a $100 supplement credit, because most people typically end up needing supplements, and we don't care if you get the supplements from us or whoever. We tell you what you need. It's up to you where you get it from. You may have a functional medicine doctor or a friend that's in the supplement business that can give you a great deal. Go for it. Just take the stuff we're recommending. We don't care where you get it from. We only make supplements for the purpose of convenience, that we should have in stock what we're telling people they need, but get it from anywhere. That's why you have that $100 credit, so that it's easy for you to start and understand how it's going to make you feel. When you start to feel better, then you decide where to buy it from. Coupon code DNA hacks cannot be applied. Janet is saying, Janet, just to be clear, it's on the test itself, not the program, right? So on the test itself. So just to make sure. And you get coaching with your program. Is it one? Yes, it's a one-on-one program. So Shelby, to answer your question, the coaching is one-on-one. We do most of what we do that way because of the innate structure of, like, we're diving into your DNA. You know, how do we coach you in a group setting, which is what most practices do, because it's more profitable. Again, we said, if we're not going to reach the outcome, we're not going to be a going concern anyway. We have to actually get you to the finish line. And getting you to the finish line means one-on-one coaching. It means diving into your genome, not a group setting where every answer maybe isn't relevant to you. And when it comes to personalized medicine, that becomes even so more important. And so, yes, it's a one-on-one coaching. I'm going back to the Q&A box.
And Kashif, if I could just, you have 15 minutes.
Right. And we do have another call at 7:30, so I will be jumping off right then. Love to keep going, but we have to be on something else at 7:30. So Anne, the genetic, yeah, we have so Anne is asking about education. We do have courses. We have a free course that's on our academy. If you want to get basic intro, we have a deep dive paid course. If you want to be certified, which means you can actually work with us. And we have a science course, which is if you want to really geek out and learn not the actual insights, but the science behind the genome. So that's the academy. Jason is on this call right now. Jason, maybe you can drop your email into the chat, and or Anne, you're welcome to drop your email into the chat. You need to connect with Jason. He's the person that's going to set you up with training. and walk you through the various options, and you can figure out what to do there. So again, either and you can drop your email in, or Jason, you can drop your email and you guys can connect. So this will help with my practice. Oh, certainly, Shelby, half of what we do is supporting functional medicine practitioners. So this will, every decision that you have to make becomes personalized. Every client that you're trying to build a plan for, you know exactly what to do. From, again, from autism to hair loss to diet, nutrition. I mean, today we're here supporting each other on weight, but every health and wellness question that needs to be answered, right down to what sport should my child be playing? What career should they be planning? Because we know their neurochemicals, we know their hormones, right? So what do we actually do there? Yeah, certainly if you have a practice, you should be implementing functional genomics. Half of what we do is working with functional genomics practitioners. And I saw that email drop in, so I'll just make a note here just in case. So let's see. Any other thoughts or questions before we drop off? Just make sure, we want to be fair and give you your fair opportunity to dive into whatever you needed to understand while we're here live with you, to answer them on the spot. Any other thoughts or questions? If
I
not,
think we've covered it all, Kashif.
okay, if not, we can give you some time back if you guys are all done. I would, again, make note of the links. So the weight loss program, maybe we'll drop them in there one more time. So there are really three big concerns came up here today. Some of you are saying, I'm a clinician, I want to bring this into practice. Great, we're going to connect you to the right people. You're welcome to email us at client care. Or let's see who else is here. Allison, Jason, anybody can connect here, drop your emails in to share. So that's one. Any of you practitioners that want to work with us, we can do that. Second question that came up was the weight loss program. Before this call even started, people were asking, how do I actually do this? How do I work with you guys? How do I actually take all this info and turn it into a viable plan that's going to make this, to Sandaya's point, permanent change, because I'm dealing with the root cause. Well, we do have the weight loss program. The link we can drop in here for you again. It's right there for everybody. Click on that link. It will take you to the program. This will be permanent change. And by the way, in doing this, you're not just going to solve weight loss. You're going to solve other things, because keep in mind, the root cause of what's causing your fat retention and your whatever issues you're dealing with are probably causing other things. All of a sudden, your brain fog is going to go away, and you're going to have a little bit of energy, and your sleep quality is going to increase, and your libido might go up, and your relationships get better. So the impact of solving things at the root cause level is that multiple symptoms go away, because they're usually all rooted in the same thing, right? So we are going to work with you on weight loss. We do have bigger programs that are $6,000 and $9,000, slightly under that, 5,800 and 8,800, that are designed to do everything. But you're kind of automatically going to learn that by doing this anyway. So that's one. Second and third thing. So some of you want to work with us. Connect with Jason and Allison. Jason and Allison, I think your notes went to the host. You need to share with everybody. Second note is some of you wanted to work with us on programs, so click on that. That's how you do that. Sign up there. Third note is some of you wanted to just buy the test and self-serve. So use the hack code, DNA hacks. We'll share that for you guys here again. And that way you can get your discount. So with that, it seems like we've answered. Oh, sorry, there's another question, Gina. What if I decide later after purchasing a kit to work with Jason or whoever? So if you purchase the kit and you decide to purchase, go into the coaching program, you can do that anytime, but keep in mind, the program is as is, meaning it comes with a test. So it's not like, hey, I already got the test, can I get a credit towards the test? It's a product, it's designed as it is. It's too complex on our end to keep changing things. So the program is as it is. If you've already bought a test, it still comes with a test, and you're going to end up giving that as a gift to somebody. That's the only consideration for you, right? But you can do it at any time. It's a product on the shelf, available anytime. The one thing I would point out, however, is if you go to our website, you won't find the weight loss program. It's not something that we openly advertise. It's something that we do with groups and corporations, etc. It's not there. It exists. We do it. We just finished doing it for tens of, I think it was 60 people, but it's not on the website. You're going to have to reach out to us. And
Hey,
that's
Cash, I have a quick question for you. And I don't know if you would want to do this just for this particular group. But since we were spending so much time with BioAge and whatnot this weekend, anyone that has already bought a test kit, could they exchange the new DNA test kit that comes with the program for the DNA gene kit?
for the epigenetic test.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good solution. Ultimately, the package comes with a test, right? So what we could do, very good point, is instead of giving you an additional, if there's no one that you think could benefit from that test in your friends or family circle, then we can replace it with an epigenetics test, which will look at your biological age and epigenetic expression. So we can do that.
And you guys will need to sign up with Jason or with Allison, and their information is in the chat window.
So let me just see if there's, okay, so that's all the questions. I think we've covered everything. We'll leave this window open for the next few minutes in case you want to, copy any of these links or scroll through. You can scroll through the chat, look at the history of the conversation and find the promo codes, etc. So we'll leave it open for you until 7:30. And with that, oh, sorry, another question. Nope, that disappeared. Looks like I got answered. So with that, we'll give you some time back if we're all done with your questions. Thank you again, guys, for joining. The intention here was to put us all together to answer the questions that you all had. And here we go. You can see that there's so much more to your body when it comes to outward physical appearance than just calories and exercise. That's a very, very rudimentary, basic place to be when it comes to aiming for your ideal body type. You don't have your $500 per hour Hollywood trainer to lean on, these people that actually understand these hacks experientially because they've been through it. So really, instead of paying for that person, that brilliant person that's going to cost you tens of thousands of dollars over time, a one-time test or a one-time program will give you permanent change. The questions that actually need answering will get answered, and you're going to have permanent change. And then you can use those same tools to solve any other problem because you're going to learn how your body works. And next month, when you're working with PMS or you're working with hair loss or whatever, you're going to be able to dip back into that same human instruction manual and solve other problems in the future. So with that, again, thank you guys for joining us. Good evening. Oh, Gina, you're not seeing contact info. Just scroll through the chat. It's all there. If you go in the chat box, scroll through, there's been multiple emails and that drop in there. Good night, guys. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Kashif.
your genetics are a phenomenal thing. A 40-year-old person who looks and feels like they're 28 isn't because they left things to chance. They're doing things differently. Chronic disease, aging, poor performance. These are all the result of wrong choices. But how do you know what the right choices are for you? And what would be the impact if you always made the right choice? What if you can change the day you die? When you see those first wrinkles, those gray hairs, or a call from the doctor and they say, "I need to see you, your test results are in." We've taken it for granted that this is meant to happen, that aging and disease are just a part of life. Well, what if they're not? You can't feel cancer coming. There's no warning that dementia is on the way, and so we think these things just happen. We get sick, we try to treat it, but it's too late. Well, now there's a better way. A way that puts us each in charge of our own destiny. Genetic research has advanced more in the last 3 years than the last 30. And this personal instruction manual that's in each one of us has finally been properly decoded. We can now get ahead of disease or even reverse it, allowing us to decide how we age. Our scientists have clinically studied over 5,000 people. We've sat in front of each and every one of them. We looked at their hair, their skin, their mood and behavior, their medical history, everything about them, all overlaid on their DNA map. We then understood where the biochemistry of your trillions of cells and the instructions of your 22,000 genes intersect. And with that, what choices each one of us needs to make to slow down aging and catch disease before it happens. I have no doubt that with the genetic insights we're seeing today, chronic disease will soon be a story that we tell our grandchildren. If you understand why chronic disease and aging really happen, you also understand that they are truly optional.